Hello, I'm Jess apparently, and today I'm going to be comparing laser cutting and water jet cutting for you. First question I guess would be why compare these two and not any other two methods? Primarily it's because their physical setup is the same. They both are controlled by computer programs, so you type in the information which you want it to cut, and then the computer sends the program to the nozzle, which they both have a nozzle in fact, and that does it for you automatically. First of all, I will explain how both of them work. CO2 lasers they work through a high power beam sent through loads of optical mirrors, which then, when it's sent out the nozzle, it has such a high temperature that it can vaporize the metal, and any molten vapor that is left on the metal is blown away by the gas, the steam which is sent in through the nozzle as well. The water jet is sent by a high pressure pump full of water, obviously, because it's water jet, and that high pressure is sent into such a small surface area of the nozzle that, from the equation P equals F over A, you get such a high force coming out of the nozzle onto the metal so it can cut through. Next I shall talk through the applications. All materials can be cut by water jet, which is a massive pro. However, CO2 can cut through most metals, not all materials, most metals, so it is useful still, but there's a couple of drawbacks on that side. Also, there's limited access with these because if you want to get into small nooks and crannies, you might not be able to because it's such a large piece of equipment and such a fine nozzle, and if you're trying to work your way into little areas, it can be quite difficult. The thickness which cutting processing is economical for these types of cutting is for CO2 lasers. It can be from minus 0.12 inches to 0.4 inches, depending on the material, and for water jet it's about 0.4 inches to 2 inches. The precision of each process, the CO2 laser is in fact a lot more precise. It can be more precise. Depending on the cutting speed, it can cut material up to 0.006 inches thin, the slit which it can cut, whereas the water jet is actually 0.02. So quite similar and quite precise, but CO2 takes that one. The processing tolerance, so the tolerance of the material, so that the actual burrs which can be left on during the slit, for CO2 laser is about 0.02 inches, and the water jet is 0.008. So water jet actually takes that one. The operating environment, so the safety side of it, CO2 laser doesn't actually have that many safety precautions that you need to take, except just don't get the laser in your eye. But the water jet can actually be quite dangerous because it can cut through all materials, so it can obviously cut through you. So definitely don't put your hand under the water jet. But the cleanup for the water jet is very high, because if you can imagine the amount of water that's coming through that nozzle, going into the material and sprays everywhere, so there's a lot of cleanup, whereas with laser, I mean, it's not a tangible material, so there is no cleanup. It's very low. Also, the noise from the water jet is extremely high, so that can be a drawback. Finally, I will talk about the costs between the two of them. The initial setup is very high for both of them. I mean, it can cost up to $300,000. Maybe we should change that into pounds. $300,000 to set them up each. But the laser one, the CO2 laser, once it's set up, the maintenance costs aren't that high, whereas the water jet one can be quite high because of the amount of water that you are putting through the system. However, compared to other ones, it's not too bad for the maintenance because it's a non-contact process, so you don't need to keep changing the nozzle or things like that because it doesn't touch anything. That's it from me. I will now hand you over to Seamos, the big lad, for a little conclusion.